It is time. I'm excited to get to this point where we hear from the guest speaker for this year. Those of you who have the program, you have seen that our guest speaker for today is Reverend Dr. Engineer Anthony Appiah. Who is he? Before he delivers the lecture, I am privileged, Prof. Chair, to introduce Reverend Dr. Engineer Anthony Appiah to all of us. Prof. Reverend Dr. Engineer Anthony Appiah is a groundwater consultant and a retired senior research scientist of the CSIR Water Research Institute. He was the head of the groundwater division for 7 years and has 32 years of experience in water resources. I think that I should even stop here because 32 years, he can tell us everything about the water. But let me go on. I think I've piqued your curiosity. So let me go on. So he has 32 years of experience in water resources, groundwater and environmental water science. He had his first degree in geological engineering from the Institute of Mining and Mineral Engineering, KNUST. His second degree was in water resources survey using GIS and remote sensing tools from ITC in the Netherlands. He obtained his doctorate degree in hydrogeology from the University of the Western Cape in Cape Town, South Africa. I think he's gone to all the continents. He is a groundwater specialist and has passion for environmental water science. He worked with a team from CSIR, the Water Research Institute, to assess the impact of Galamsey activities on water bodies between 2012 and 2022, and was a key player in the advocacy against the destruction of water bodies by illegal small-scale miners in Ghana. He has partnered the Media Coalition Against Galamsey since its inception in 2017 and was with them in all their talks in the 10 regions of Ghana where Galamsey is endemic, speaking at the town hall meetings to educate the communities on the negative impacts of Galamsey. In all these town hall meetings, Dr. Duah was a resource person speaking on the harm to the environment and the impact of the health on the health of the people. He was the CSIR rep on the issues of Galamsey and speaks to the media whenever the need arises. Reverend Dr. Engineer Anthony Appiah is also an ordained Reverend Minister and has been married for over 32 years with 3 grown-up children. He is currently the president of the Ghana Institution of Geoscientists, an umbrella institution for all geoscience professionals in Ghana, including mining geologists and engineers. He is also the interim president of the Ghana Association of Geologists and Groundwater Professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, let us welcome our guest speaker for this morning, Reverend Dr. Engineer Anthony Appiah.
The Council Chair, Honorable Deputy Minister of Education, Honorable Vice Chancellor, members of the University Council, honorable MPs, and then the rep for the VCs, Nananom, all heads of institutions, the SRC present is, and all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, especially the council chair, the VC, the honorable registrar, and then the management of this institution for this opportunity given to me to address this gathering. I deem it as an honor. I'm very grateful for that, and I really do appreciate that. As we said, this is the third commencement lecture for the beginning of this academic year, 2023. And the theme is securing the environment, our water, our future. Water is one of the vital key components of the environment, and it's fundamental to life on this planet. It is a resource that is increasingly in demand and also under threat. No living organism can survive without water, whether they are humans, plants, or animals, or macro and microorganisms. We all depend on water for our daily survival. United Nations says that globally about 2 billion people are without access to safe drinking water. Water affects lives, livelihoods, and the health of peoples, economies, and then the environment on the whole. The importance of water to life explains why early civilization developed along water bodies. If you talk about Africa, Egypt was a big economy in ancient times, all because of the Nile River. We have other big rivers in Africa that has given huge economies, trade, and commerce to many nations. Talk about the Congo, the Niger, the Zambezi, the Limpopo, Orange, Okavango, all the Eastern and Southern Africa, and also our own Volta. It has provided settlement for people, fertile lands for farming and fishing, and trade and commerce. These rivers are of vital importance to a continent in which many people live in poverty, and many regions are dry most of the time. Rivers bring life to otherwise infertile barren lands, enabling people to grow crops, catch fish, and transport goods and services to places. Africa is also home to some important water bodies like the lakes. In East Africa, we have the Victoria, the Rift Valley, the Lake Tanganyika, Nyasa, and also we have the Lake Volta, which is the biggest man-made lake in the whole wide world. Together, these water resources maintain life for all living organisms on the continent. Now, let us come home to Ghana and we look at our water resources. Ghana can boast of several rivers and lakes, constituting the surface water resources together with a huge load of groundwater reserves. Our surface water resources, we classify them into 3 groups or systems. And this is based on their location, the amount of rainfall they receive, and the vegetation characteristics. We have the Volta River system, the Southwestern River system, and then we have the Coastal Rivers system. The Volta Rivers, we have the Red Volta, the Black Volta, the White Volta. We also have the Oti River Basin as part of that. When you come to the Southwestern Rivers, includes the Appiah, the River Tunnel, and Cobra, and the largest of all, the Pra River. And in this case, when we talk about the Pra, as hydrologists, we refer the basin, which is composed of the Brim, the Ofeng, and then the main Pra, as all parts of the tributaries of the Pra. The Kakum, Ochi, Nakwa, Ochi, Amisa, Ayensu, the Densu, and then the Toji, Aka rivers also composed, they together form the Coastal Rivers system. And they are found mainly along our coast. Now we have an annual main runoff of about 54.4 billion meter cube of water. That is to say that this amount of water flows on our lands together, most of which enter into the sea. Of this, about 39.4 billion meter cube originates from inside the country, and there are about the other 15 coming from outside. You know, we share the Volta with other riparian countries, the Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, Mali, Togo, and then the Benin. We all part of the Volta. And we happen to be at the end of it. So most of the things, the rivers, you know, river, you cannot stop it, you have to let water flow. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not too good. When Burkina opens, they don't have, or they have too much water in their dam, and they open the dam, the water flows to us. And sometimes we are not able to control that, causing floods in most parts of our country. But that is how it is. You cannot take water does not exist alone. If you go to the Middle East, they share water. Israel has water, the Jordan, and it originates from Syria. Even though they are fighting, when it comes to water, they have to cooperate. Israel has to provide Jordan with water at certain times of the year, whether you are fighting or not fighting. And they understand that. So when it comes to water, it doesn't matter whether you are an enemy or you are a foe or you are a friend. We have to cooperate, and then we have to live together. In Ghana, we also have some of our water bodies being shared with Cote d'Ivoire. The Appiah River, the tunnel, they end up the coast of Cote d'Ivoire. So the problems we create here, sometimes we transfer some to them. And when it gets hot, they come complaining. And we have to do something about that. So as I said, all these amount of water flows on our lands, and most of them end in the sea. Even though most of the people on the land may not have enough water all the time. The whole of the Volta occupies about 70% of the land area and provides 64% of the runoff. The southwestern river systems also occupy about 22% of the area, but provides almost 30% of the runoff because of the nature of the river bodies there. So is the coastal river systems 8% and provides 6.1% of runoff. In addition to surface sources, Ghana has a good amount of untapped groundwater reserves, and it's good to know that even though we don't see, last year, the World Water Day, the theme was groundwater, making the invisible visible. The good thing is that when you look at the global supply of water, when you put all water bodies together, we have about 97% of water on the whole globe in the seas or the oceans. And these are saline water. We don't term fresh. So even though they are there, you cannot use them much for your domestic things. So the only 3% that we have that we call the fresh water. When you take that 3, almost about 95 of that also is capped in the ice in the North Seas and the Himalayas, permanently there, so they are not available for use. And then when you take that, so the available freshwater resources that are available for use, almost 98% is underground. So all the seas and the surface water, rivers and lakes, they only constitute about 2 to 3% of fresh water available. So there's a lot of water underground, but it takes money and it takes a lot of science and technology to do that. These days, people are turning to groundwater, and it's good. Most of the water you drink, sachet bottles in the country, most of them is coming from the ground. And so it's good. And it also helps because it can be protected against the vagaries of the weather, the climate, and the pollution that we find on the surface of the ground. So Ghana has a lot of water, but we also are a country with water stress conditions. It means that the available water for use is not enough. So you wonder why we have so much, but we still lack a lot of water for use because of the quality of the water. Now, UNICEF tells us there's a strong link between poverty and access to clean water. When there's scarcity of water, it affects the poor more than the rich. Human existence, whether in urban or rural areas, is heavily dependent on water and its availability. So we need to differentiate that. The available water is what is needed. If it's there and it's not available, then we cannot use it for the purpose. In the past decade, Ghana has made significant progress in providing basic water services nationally. However, quality or clean water access has seen minor or moderate improvement. Only 36% of the population have access to a safely managed water source, while only 18% have access to at least basic sanitation. 76% of Ghanaian households drink contaminated water with fecal matter, unfortunately. Regional inequalities also exist. Even though the national average shows improvement in clean water supply, a lot of families and places do not have water or clean water. Let me see. Of all the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals that needs to be achieved by the year 2030, Goal 6, which is access to clean water and sanitation for all, which ensures that all member countries of the UN prioritize accessibility to clean water and sanitation facilities to all citizens as fundamental human rights. The water impinges on a lot of the others. So The achievement of SDG Goal 6 is directly and indirectly linked to the achievement of several of the SDG goals. When you talk about poverty, hunger, good health, sustainable cities, partnerships, we need water to make all these things achievable. Now, according to Ghana's 2022 Voluntary National Review report, which is a comprehensive UN government progress report on SDGs, in Ghana, approximately 92.2% of homes have access to improved drinking water sources in 2021. In urban areas, sachet water forms about 51.5% of the water they use, pipe-borne 33.6%. These are the two primary water sources. And in rural areas, boreholes or wells, 33.6%, pipe-borne water, 28.8% are the two primary water sources. Now, most of the country's major regions had access to clean water. However, more than 1/5 of the population in 4 regions, namely the Northern region, the OT region, Northeast, and the Savannah regions, lacked access to clean water sources. So, whereas the VNR report indicates the possibility that 100% of the population in Ghana will have access to safe drinking water even before 2030, there's the need for government to improve water infrastructure in rural areas, also take corrective measures to repair damaged infrastructure in urban areas, and as well as taking preventive steps to protect clean water sources in both urban and rural Ghana. Now, we look at our population, we realize that as a country, we had a people number of about 6.7 in 1960, 8.6 1970, 12.3 in 1984, and 18.9 2000 census. In 2010, the population stood at 24.6 million, rising to 30.8 in 2021. The density of the population density increased from 79 persons per square kilometer in 2000 to 103 in 2010 and 129 in 2021. So you realize that you take a space, the number of people that live in that space keeps increasing. Compared to the water resources, it appears to either same or dwindling. So it means that even if all the water is good, over time, there will be less water for individuals or per capita as the population goes up. It means that we need to do a lot to keep our water clean and make sure that they are there for use. From these statistics, the amount of water per capita is reducing without even looking at the available water for consumption. Without taking into consideration the issue of the quality of the water due to large-scale pollution, our consumptive use as a country stands about 20%. What it means is that if we keep our water resources from pollution and contamination, we will only need 20% of the annual runoff for our use. So it means we have a lot to use, but the water is still not clean and available. The annual runoff in Ghana is characterized by wide disparities between wet season and dry season flows. So in spite of the large amount of fresh water that flows annually, several communities scattered throughout the country face scarcity during the dry season, especially in the north. And according to UNICEF, there's a strong link, as I said before, between the poverty and access to clean water. So population is a factor, and the quality of the water is also a big factor. So what are the challenges we face in Ghana? The challenges affecting water resources in Ghana are both external and domestic. External factors are attributed to the changing global climate, and while the domestic factors are linked to human activities that affect the quantity and quality of water supply. Climate change is expected to cause increases in temperatures and reduction in rainfall, resulting in reduction in water supply. So when temperature goes up, a lot of the water, especially in open places, get evaporated before they are used. Increases in rainfall intensity and reduction in rainfall duration, having a lot of water falling within a very short period, will increase the occurrences of floods. And then the long periods of absence of rain also will cause droughts in a lot of places. So climate change and climate variability in Ghana will affect many sectors of our economy. They are great health and energy, and its implication on the ecology, the land use, poverty, and livelihoods. Projected high temperature and low rainfall will increase desertification. Sea surface temperatures will increase, sea levels will rise, and this will have drastic effects on fisheries and aquaculture. On the domestic front, indiscriminate destruction of forest reserves by illegal chainsaw operators, poor land use practices result in rapid deforestation, exposing water bodies to high evaporation and pollution. The excessive use of inorganic fertilizers is known to pollute water bodies in farm areas, including groundwater. In Ghana, a significant constraint in the effort to provide safe, clean water has been the pollution of water sources by waste disposal in watercourses and illegal mining activities. Improper solid waste disposal in urban communities has been a major source of pollution in the coastal river systems. So if you take Densu, for example, there's a lot of waste in that. So when it gets to Weja and they are treating, sometimes people say Weja water is not as nice as Pong because of the amount of pollution that happens there. So the treatment, even though you can do all the treatment you like, sometimes the odor and the things may not be able to get out completely. So disposal of waste has been a big problem in the coastal river systems in Ghana. So the Densu River, as I said, as a primary, in the past decade, the primary cause of pollution and destruction of major rivers in Ghana, especially the southwestern river systems, that is the Appiah, Tano, and Cobra, and the Pra, and certain parts of the White Volta in the Talensi area and the Black Volta, Bole, Bamboy, Wichau, all these areas are gold mining areas. They have seen illegal mining of gold, popularly known as galamsey activities. They have destroyed and continue to destroy many water sources and continually hamper the achievement of clean water for all goal. According to the VNR report, despite minor improvements, the freshwater sources continue to be negatively affected by illegal mining activities, uncontrolled pollution, and waste disposal into river bodies. In recent times, the Ghana Water Company has shut down some of its water treatment facilities in gold mining areas due to high level of turbidity, that is the dirt in water, coming from illegal mining activities. Illegal mining causes high level of turbidity in the water for treatment. resulting in siltation of the intake areas where the water was supposed to move for them to use. There, because it has a lot of sediment loads, the sands will settle down. Then you have a very small space for the water to occupy. Apart from the fact that the water itself is not clean and is muddy, causing high cost of water treatment and also maintenance. Sometimes the heatability goes very high. Normally, for normal fresh water, or let's say for drinking water, heatability is 5 NTUs. So, and then for fresh water, 10, 20, even sometimes the machines are able to operate at levels of maybe say 100 NTU. But in mining areas, we have recorded over 1,000, sometimes 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 NTUs for heatability. And if you are in the country and you travel along the roads, you see the nature of some of these rivers, and it's continually going on. Despite all the fights and all the issues that come with it, there's a need for a continual monitoring and protection of our water bodies by state institutions, the Water Resource Commission, Minerals Commission, Environmental Protection Agency, Ministry of Lands, Natural Resources, and then the MMDs, the district assemblies, whose lands these miners operate, and also the general public. We can all achieve the clean water for all goal if we all put our hearts to this. Now, some of the threats to human health and livelihoods. Another serious threat to human health and livelihoods is the chemical pollution of rivers by illegal miners. The use of toxic and hazardous chemicals like mercury, lead, arsenic, cyanide, the extraction of gold has resulted in the chemical pollution of soil and water in water bodies in the mining areas. Results from soil and sediment sample analysis has revealed high levels of trace metals and toxic chemicals in Galamsey areas. Some of these chemicals have been found in the food chain, plant tissues, fruits, fish gills, through bioaccumulation. So they pick them one at a time and it accumulates them. The sad thing is that it doesn't kill you immediately, so it keeps piling up until it gets to the point the body cannot deal with it. Then it creates problems for the inhabitants. They can result in poisoning, organ impairment or damage, death in high concentrations. So when they get to certain levels, either your kidney is giving up or your lungs, or you die. Lead affects the nervous system. There are short-term injuries such as headaches, joint and muscular pains. These are rampant. Long-term impacts include respiratory distress, cancer, silicosis, heavy metal poisoning, memory and speech losses, numbness, vision problems, convulsion, kidney failure, death. These are not uncommon. Lead poisoning in particular causes anemia, weakness, constipation, colic, palsy, and often paralysis of the wrists and ankles. Lead can reduce intelligence in children. It can delay motor developments, impair memory, and cause hearing problems. For example, lead found in water can increase blood pressure in adults. Then it can also cross placenta, which results in miscarriages, stillbirths, and neurological damage. Illegal mining remains one of the riskiest jobs due to the high risk of morbidity and mortality. And we have all seen and recorded several accidents of miners having been reported in the past in recent times. People getting trapped in pits and people getting killed in mine areas. In May 2021, there was a newspaper report attributed to the director of the Nursing and Midwifery Service in Seum Health Center, the Aorin district in the Western region of Ghana, that the health center was recording high number of births where the babies come born without eyes, some without nose, ears, and the mouth. And she attributed this strange phenomenon to the drinking water of the pregnant mothers, which was contaminated with chemicals used in Galamsey. What he said was that the high polluted river, whose deplorable condition is due to Galamsey, serves as the only source of drinking water for the community. The director was said to have reported to the media in an appeal to the traditional leaders and other residents in the area to support the renewed fight against Galamsey to enable their pregnant women to give birth to healthy babies. And this story was supported by the Ghana Medical Association. So it is not something that is coming out from somebody's head. The current available water resources per capita, that is, if we divide all our water based on our population, is about 1,700 meter cube per capita per year. The total withdrawal is 20.4% of the total available renewable water resources in the country. We use about 70% for irrigation, 20% for domestic use, and then 10% for industrial use. Now, with the per capita at 1,700, Ghana is in a situation we call the water stress. Water stress and scarcity is a concept for quantitatively evaluating water resources availability. So water scarcity is normally a function of the available fresh water and human population or socio-economic conditions. So water scarcity generally manifests in reduced river runoffs, which is not our case, declining groundwater tables, not really, but heavily polluted waters, which is our problem. Increasing cost of water treatment and water supply. Water scarcity can be physical, it can also be economic, and it can also be environmental. In our situation, it is more environmental than physical. The water is available, but it is not in the condition that we can use. So water scarcity is also natural and man-made. So if we have a water scarcity as a result of, say, climate change, we can call it a natural phenomenon. But in a situation where the pollution is coming from human activities, it is something that is man-made. So as a country, we are experiencing stress conditions, but also fast deteriorating into water scarcity. People always talk about we will get to a point where we import water. I always ask myself, where are you going to import the water from? Who has enough water to give you some? I remember in Israel, we had a program then. One of their senior retired water people who was teaching us, and at that time, they use a lot of groundwater. They had used a lot, and they were running out. So they were debating on the next level, in the coming years, whether they should stick to desalination because they are close to the sea. The sea is there. You can always desalinate it, take the soil or the salt from the water and use. But that is very expensive. Or import water. And in their case, they were going to import the water from Turkey. The Tigris and the Euphrates. If you're a Bible student, you know that we're talking about. And so they had a lot of meetings, cabinet level, and they reached the conclusion that it is too risky to depend on somebody for water. So then they have to put forces together, monies together, and then get into desalination. This is a country that has 300 milliliters of water a year. So they can talk about that. We have a lot of water. The 300 can be done in Accra, maybe 3 days. So as I'm saying, it is not a situation where we can talk about importing water or even going into desalination. We tried that at Tish, but we all know the problems that we had, and it's very expensive. When we have a lot of fresh water that flows at Duah and Lower Volta into the sea all the time, all we need is to improve our infrastructure and bring this fresh water to the areas where they are needed. And the areas where they have the huge rivers, we make sure that we don't allow people to pollute the rivers. Because our forefathers relied on these rivers. We went to farm, and they didn't need to carry water. You go there, and the water will be flowing. You can fetch it and drink it. This time, you cannot try that. Because when you see the water that is coming, nobody will tell you that don't touch it. It's like they don't touch me, so you cannot touch it. And now these days, even farmers go to farm with sachet water. So you ask yourself, why are we doing this to ourselves? The decrease in water quality is caused mainly by the turbidity and the total solids that are in the water. Sometimes high nutrients, the phosphates and the nitrates, high BOD, that's organic matter, sewage, domestic waste that are thrown into river bodies. The observed increased trend of pollution is attributed to human activities. Sometimes removal of the vegetation cover, illegal mining, fertilizer used in farmlands in most of these cases. The activities of illegal mining are evident in the water bodies. As I said, when you travel along the roads, you see the presence of high TDS, TSS, or turbidity in our rivers. You can see that the water is not what it is. It's brown, some call it Milo, some call it whatever. Now, the worst of these areas are the areas that are found in mining areas. So the gold areas have these properties. There are these problems. Even though we have groundwater, most of these areas are now being supplied with groundwater. Groundwater can also be polluted when we don't protect the aquifer sources. There are areas that are termed as discharge and recharge areas. So the recharge areas are where the water will seep into the ground. So if there's a lot of contamination in the water, it can also affect groundwater. So in conclusion, Ghana has made significant gains in provision of access to water on a national scale. However, little progress has been made to the provision of access to clean water for all. Water pollution by human activities continue to hinder the progress of providing clean water to majority of our people. Even though the country has enough renewable water resources, including our groundwater reserves, accessibility to available clean and safe water is a luxury to many of the population, especially those living in the northern part of the country. To achieve SDG Goal 6, clean water and sanitation for all by 2030, government must take preventive action to protect clean water sources, including Galamsey areas. It must improve water infrastructure in rural areas, especially in the northern part of Ghana. And it must take corrective measures to repair damaged infrastructure in urban communities. Even in urban areas, Ghana Water, the losses are huge. The water they produce, almost 40%, at the point it was about 50%. The losses, of course, some are on people that tap them illegally, so they are not monitored. And then others just spill away because of old and damaged infrastructure. The fight against Galamsey must be intensified. The MMDAs and the general public must support government to traditional authorities, and all the local residents should support. There are areas where the chief, the people say, we don't want this here, and they don't have it there. Sometimes the people complain that you cannot take natural decisions to decide, just like the chief in Mampon said, they don't allow mining there. The ministers, the recently we went to visit the deputy minister for lands, and he was complaining, why can somebody take control and say that? But if you look at the situation in areas where these things are happening and the people are suffering, then sometimes it becomes very difficult to stop them, because we allow them, we are not able to protect the people who need the water. So what are our roles and our responsibilities? Depriving people of their water resources and livelihood is a human right issue. Government must take up its responsibility to arrest the alarming rate of pollution and contamination in our water bodies. The agencies, as I said, Water Commission, EPA, Minerals Commission, Lands and Forestry Ministry should perform their assigned roles and responsibilities and stop illegal mining activities, take necessary steps together with stakeholders to reclaim the degraded lands and restore water bodies to perform their ecological functions. It's not only water that illegal mining affects, it affects agriculture. These days, the farmers, they will buy your land and then they use it for galamsey. Cocoa is being affected. The land is being affected. The soil is being affected. If you grow certain plants, they pick up some of these chemicals, and we can find some of them in even fruits that are sold in the market. To limit pollution to clean water sources, all citizens, groups, and individuals must collectively resolve to refrain from the disposal of solid and liquid waste into water bodies, especially during rain days. When it's raining, everybody thinks that you can pour your rubbish into the water and to take it away. The excessive use of agrochemicals, destruction of forest reserves, sand winning, and all those things. You and me, everyone must be stewards of the environment. We should secure our environment. We live the environment in which we live in. Because if we destroy our environment, we are destroying ourselves. If you throw your garbage in the running water during the rain, thinking that the running water will carry it far away from you, you must remember that your garbage will land in somebody else's corridor. But someone else's garbage will also land in your corridor because of the collective negligence. So the future of Ghana's water resources depends on our collective actions and inactions. It's all in our hands. As we always say, you cannot eat your cake and have it. You want gold or you want water. Our intentions must be translated into actions. There should be political will. Our leaders must show commitment. All involved, state agencies, traditional people involved, we should all act to resolve to save our water bodies, our farm lives, and our human lives. So water is life. And as we said, there's no alternative to water. So let us all secure this environment and have a future for our water resources. Thank you very much.